So I was like, stumbling along and explaining, very awkward, this is the Bible. And, when the Bible says you must keep the Sabbath, this is our tradition in terms of Judaism and the Talmud. We don't use our phones. And that means from sunset today, my phone's going to be off for 25 hours. And if you call me on behalf of the president and my phone is off, I will only be able to pick up the message on Saturday night and I'll get back to you then. But please don't take it as an offense, to the president. And I was like waiting to see what she was going to say. And like, is she going to say, this is ridiculous? Are you insulting us? She said to me words which I'll never forget.
Welcome back to another episode of Inspiration for the Nation. And this week we tap into eternity. How do you get eternity? We talk about the beauty of Shabbos. If you love Shabbos, this episode is for you. There's so many beautiful moments. And if you're not connecting into Shabbos the way that you could, you're going to learn about the beauty. And this is an incredible episode with Rabbi Doctor, I never know which one goes first. I think it's Rabbi Dr. Warren Goldstein, the chief rabbi of South Africa. We talked to him about South Africa, the incredible movements he's made. And yeah, he's the person who started the Shabbos Project, one of the most impactful, motivational, moving movements, I sound crazy, in the world, in the Jewish world. And behind me, if you're watching this, you see a beautiful Tesla that you're going to hear a lot more about the Chicago Chesed Fund and how you could be the new winner of this Tesla. Also, you're going to hear about Dr. Zimmerman's incredible book that if you're living in a Jewish home, you need to go and check that out. Now, here's this week's episode.
I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Take us back to the beginning. Where were you born and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, well, I'm born in South Africa, in the city of Pretoria. Today it's known as the city of Tshwane. And actually my parents and my grandparents were all born in South Africa. My great-grandparents came from Lithuania, as most South African Jews are descended from the Litvischer communities. And one of my great-grandfather, whose name was Kalman Meyer Goldstein, he arrived in South Africa in around 1899. And he left home at the age of 17. He never saw his parents and siblings again. In fact, they were murdered in the Holocaust. We have a letter that he received from his family after the war, just recounting about how there was no one left. It's heartbreaking. When I spoke at Yom HaShoah service here in South Africa a number of years ago, actually just when I was starting as chief rabbi, I read from that letter, and it's so moving and so sad. But he came here with tremendous bravery and courage. 17, there was in those days, obviously, no means of communication home. You wrote a letter months later. There's not the kind of immediacy that we have today. And so when you left home, you were mamish leaving home. And that's what he did. And he came, with his Yiddishkeit, and he started farming in an area called Bethel. There are a lot of the towns in South Africa take their names from the Tanakh, from the Torah. So Bethel, obviously from Beit El, and he was a small farming community outside there. He was very involved in his shul that was in the town, so he came, and then all of my grandparents on all sides were born in South Africa, and so we've been around on the African continent for a number of generations. And so I grew up in the city of Pretoria. There was a Jewish day school. There was a thriving Jewish community. We were as kids we were very involved in the shul. I found a tremendous gift in the sense that it was a place where as the youth we were encouraged to do laning and davening and all those kinds of things, and even to say Divrei Torah. I think the first Dvar Torah that I ever gave, in a public forum, I think I was even before Bar Mitzvah, I can't even remember. And it was, at a community, Sudah Shlishit, where I had an opportunity to say Dvar Torah. Growing up in that kind of small community, there were lots of those opportunities that came, and it was such a beautiful way to grow up. I remember, walking to shul in groups of, with our friends, and we all were contributing and making a difference. And I think to me, that's a critical thing for youth today is actually taking responsibility for Kehillah. And I know in a way it goes against the grain sometimes of the sense of, you don't want to impose on the youth, but actually taking responsibility and doing things for others is in some ways the best way to be inspired by your Yiddishkeit, by your, by what it means to be a Jew and your Torah and Mitzvah. So growing up in a small community like that, and having a chance to participate and the leadership opportunities that came was a critical part, of my growing up.
Did you always envision, was it a goal for you to become a chief rabbi, or was there other job positions or titles that was on your mind?
No, goodness. I mean, as growing up at school, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be a rabbi. I knew I wanted to, to go and learn in yeshiva, and and that's and even when I began that path, and to be honest, even after I got smicha, I remember it was just soon after I got married, and my wife and I, we started in one small shul, then moved to another small shul, and we were always thinking at the time, there was opportunities to start looking at other ways of and different avenues of work. After I'd got smicha, then I did a law degree, and I was actually thinking of practicing law, and so at the moment
it's always a common denominator, like you and big rabbanim, there's always law related to it. I guess it makes sense to some degree. It's always a common denominator.
After I got smicha, I stayed on in the yeshiva in which I learned. The yeshiva that I learned in was the Yeshiva Gedola in Johannesburg, established by my Rosh Hashiva, Rav Azriel Chaim Goldstein Zatzal, was my Rabbi, and learned everything from him. He was a Talmud Muvak by Rav Mordechai Gifter, a close disciple of the Telzer Rosh Hashiva, and he, after I got smicha, invited me to stay on and to teach in the yeshiva, which I did. I gave all the halacha shiurim. I ran the Yoredeya, the smicha program, to train all the new rabbis, and then I also had a small shul at the same time. And while I was doing all of that, I got a law degree, and when that degree came through, my wife and I had a discussion: should I stay on in the rabbinate or move into law? And I must say, to her schus, she said, "Listen, you're enjoying it. Stay in the rabbinate. Stay another year or two. Let's see how this goes." And because of that advice, I stayed on, and then went on to another shul, and then became chief rabbi. But it wasn't sort of, well, I'm determined to be a rabbi. I'm determined to be chief rabbi. It didn't happen like that. And in a certain sense, I became chief rabbi. My appointment was announced. I was 32. When I started in the position, I was 33. So it was very young, and it was a whole journey of learning, coming into a position like that at such a young age.
I'm trying to think in my own shoes. I'm 31 years old now. Like, maybe if the 5 towns is looking for a chief rabbi, no, I would definitely not qualify. But were you intimidated to take on that mantle? Like, being a chief rabbi is a big responsibility.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it's also a sense of being daunted by the responsibility of it, and really, what the approach that I took on it right from the beginning. And I think this is a critical thing in all situations of leadership and responsibility. You obviously have to take it day by day, and also to work with all the people around you, and to have been blessed throughout the years to have amazing rabbonim who were at my side, who helped and guided me. My Rosh Hashiva in those early years was always there for advice and guidance, and I got tremendous support, from many of the senior rabbonim within the community, and so it was a journey which I took sort of day by day, but with tremendous support from everybody. But I think a critical thing in any position that a person takes on, you can never really feel comfortable in it. And even now, when I look back, and I've been in the position for 18 years, it's for me the day that I feel completely comfortable in this, and not a sense of trepidation for what it is the day that I shouldn't be in it. You need to have respect for responsibility, whether that position is as a chief rabbi or rabbi of a community, whether that's the position of a parent. I think that parenthood, being a parent and bringing children into the world and educating children and giving them values and direction and raising them in a Torah lifestyle, that's a tremendous, awesome responsibility. And one needs to feel that. There's like the story that I think they tell I've heard the story in the name of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, but maybe others have heard it in other people's names. But basically, one of his Talmidim was approached to take on a particular position of leadership, and he said to Rabbi Akiva Eiger, he said, "Look, I don't feel worthy to take it on, and I'm a bit nervous about it and have trepidation." And Rabbi Akiva Eiger said to him, because he knew his student was capable of exercising the responsibilities of the job, but he said to him, so who should take it on? Someone who is completely confident in what they can do with the job. So it's in a sense that trepidation and the awe of the responsibility is absolutely crucial for any successful leadership position. And when I say leadership, it's exactly what I said before. It's not just these kind of official positions. It's leadership of you running a business. It's leadership in your family as a parent. It is leadership in your shul, in your school, wherever it may be. We are all leaders. And to me, a guiding principle in all of the work that I've done is that I don't view myself as a leader with followers. I view us all as partners and fellow leaders in trying to make a difference to the world. And everyone needs to feel the sense of responsibility of leadership. And we all need to feel a little bit awed about the impact that we are making on the people around us.
I guess that makes a lot of sense, because when anyone's born in the world, they have a mission, and they're the leader of their very own mission. And it's so easy to go through society and say, like, there's just different positions of power. Like there's a president, there's a king, there's a queen, like whatever it is, and say, okay, they're higher up. I mean, even in the Torah, we have Kohanim, but at the end of the day, that doesn't take away someone's own responsibility and how they can be a leader in their own right.
Yeah, it's like the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says, Ha'amidu Talmidim Harbe, establish many students. And there's an amazing comment there by one of our great sages, the Tiferes Yisrael, in his commentary on the Mishnah. He says the Mishnah is not only talking to people in official teaching and leadership positions, it is talking to every Jew that we have a responsibility to teach Torah and to establish students, the people that we come in contact with, our siblings, our friends, our work colleagues, our certainly children, spouse. We all have that mission, and in a sense, we are all leaders. And the concept of leadership very much apply. As you say, the Torah does establish certain official leadership positions. Kohanim, there's a concept of the king, the Kohen Gadol, the Sanhedrin. There are, but the difference between people who hold those positions and people who do not is just the sphere of influence. That's all that it is. The person who has an official position has a greater sphere of influence because the position gives them that extra reach and ability to get to more people. But ultimately, every one of us is in principle a leader, and that means we have to all take responsibilities, and we have to see each other as fellow leaders. I think that's absolutely critical. The sense of it. I know we'll talk a little bit later about the Shabbos Project, but for me, a key thing that led to it was the fact that people took responsibility and were prepared to lead. That the Shabbos Project over these years, and it's been 10 years since it started, really has been something that it doesn't function as an organization that is top down. It is the people's movement, and it has grown because people on the ground took responsibility and continue to take responsibility. And to me, that's been a cornerstone of the philosophy of the way I have, trying to conduct myself in this position. And that is very much to see everybody around me and that has expressed itself in so many different ways. And I've seen that bear fruits because it's giving people the respect that they deserve. It's really saying that every single one of us has got something enormous to contribute. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. Hashem gave each person a unique and special neshama. It's like the Mishnah also in Pirkei Avot that says, Im ein ani li mili, if I'm not for myself, who is for me. So the Sfas Emes brings there from the Chidushei Harim that part of that means that I've got my own personal mission in this world. And if I don't do it, nobody else can do it for me. And I think that's critical, knowing that everyone's got a role to play. And it's not just a role in their own selves personally, but it's making that greater impact.
Well, once we're on the subject, there's no specific or right or wrong order here. Obviously, my introduction to you or who you are is through the Shabbos Project. So let's get more into it. For someone who doesn't know, the 7 people in the world that don't know what the Shabbos Project is, could you explain, I guess, what it is?
Yeah, well, essentially, I'll explain it by sort of saying its origins. I mean, it started in South Africa in 2013, and it was in October 2013. A few months before that, in June, you may have come across. There's a convention, a Torah convention that we have in South Africa that I've been hosting over a number of years, called Sinai Indaba. Which is a huge gathering. The word Indaba is a Zulu word, which is one of the groupings here in South Africa. One of the languages. South Africa actually has 11 official languages. Wow. Some people say sort of the Europeans speak lots of languages. You should come to Africa and then you'll see lots of languages. And the word Indaba means a gathering in Zulu. It means the gathering of the tribe to discuss matters of importance. So we called it Sinai Indaba, Sinai after Har Sinai, Mount Sinai, and the gathering of the tribe. And in the June of that year, which was Sinai Indaba, announced to the community in 2013, that we're going to do this Shabbos Project, which was that we allocated that year. It was Parshas Lech Lechas. In subsequent years, it's been Parshas Vayera. That would be one Shabbos that the entire community would keep one Shabbos. Even those people who don't normally keep Shabbos would try for that Shabbos to keep it completely from start to finish. And then, part of the celebration of it was not only the keeping of it, but also to celebrate and to give thanks and appreciation for what Shabbos is. So it came along with, Chalabek and Havdalah concerts and all kinds of things around it. But at the essence of it is that incredible immersive experience of 25 hours, sunset to stars out. And I remember, when we announced that there was a lot of skepticism in the community. There's a lot of, there's a lot of people in the community keep Shabbos, but many do not, and was saying, well, how's this going to work? Are people really going to be keeping this entire Shabbos? And I remember having the discussion with my wife, and we were like, because there were even senior people, other rabbis who said to me, no, this thing won't work. It's a lot of skepticism around it. And I remember my wife said to me, okay, even if 10 people will keep Shabbos, it'll be worth all of the effort. And then she said, and even if they don't, and even if they're not even 10, it's like such a noble thing to fail at. So let's just, go for it. So we went, she's always given me the best advice in my life. So, as you saw, even sort of going down the path of the Rabbonis and the rabbinate, it came through her. So I want to just just say thanks. And use this opportunity. But what happened then was this incredible, overwhelming response by South African Jews. And for people who don't know the South African Jewish community, it's worth coming. Firstly, the country itself is so physically beautiful. I don't know if you've been to Cape Town and on safari, and it's really got to be on everybody's list to get out and come and see. The country's beautiful. The South Africans, as a people, as a nation, are very, very friendly and warm. A lot of faith in Hashem is actually very widespread in the country as a whole, and a lot of a lot of complications. We've got a lot of political and other problems and all kinds of challenges at the same time, but a beautiful people with a culture of warmth, of even welcoming diversity, amongst the lowest rates of anti-Semitism, Baruch Hashem, in the world in terms of incidence of anti-Semitism. So it's a beautiful country, complicated, with a complicated history. Of course, the terrible regime of apartheid and the racism of it that, thank God was defeated, and brought in the new era of human rights and equality, which with all of those incredible blessings. And so it's a beautiful country, and it's worth coming to see and experience and see it. But for me, what is so special about this place is our magnificent Jewish community. Small in number by in comparison, could fit into a few neighborhoods in 5 towns, New Jersey, wherever you find yourself there in the tri-state, and yet within that, it's a community that's very cohesive, unified, warm, and a tremendous sense of Jewish pride. And so the response of the community back then in 2013, it's 10 years, and this is actually our 10th anniversary for the Shabbos Project. We got a lot of exciting things planned for this year, please God. But it was just overwhelming, where it like swept through the community. And people poured onto the streets for the challah bake, and they were in the Havdalah concert, and people kept Shabbos. And there were reports from some of the golf clubs and the hairdressing salons and all these that went quiet with all of their Jewish customers canceling for that Shabbos. And when word started to spread then globally, because people were posting on social media and everything, then I started getting emails and requests from different communities around the world. They also wanted a Shabbos Project. What's this thing? It's amazing. We'd love to, because it was never our intention, when we started it to create a global project. It was just to say, let's just jump right in and try and do something in South Africa. Then word started to spread and people came. And I remember then also discussing with my wife at the time, what should we do now? Should we actually, just say to all the communities in the world, here's the model, go do it whenever you want? Or should we try and create one Shabbos for the whole world? And it seemed a bit daunting to do that, but that's what we did. We just jumped in. Sometimes I found often in life, you can't overthink things. You almost have to kind of go with it and jump right in. And, that's part of what we did. We jumped right in, created a video, my wife and I, explaining what happened. And in 2014, around Purim time, I think it was around March or so, we put out the video and announced a global Shabbos project for everyone in the world, for one Shabbos for the entire world Jewry. And just emails started pouring in from every corner of the globe. And this people's movement sprung up, and it's been running ever since and expanding. So to this point, there are thousands of volunteers involved in the Shabbos Project in more than 1,500 cities and 100 countries all around the world. This year it's happening on, the first Shabbos in November. It's Pashas Vayera, and it has happened over all these years for 10 years, where it's a moment of Jewish unity, but around Shabbos. And around this, it's something which has been driven by these incredible volunteers on the ground. Obviously, we've given the campaigns, the support, the content behind it, but ultimately it's people on the ground. That's what we were talking about just now. People taking personal leadership responsibilities in Europe, in France, in Latin America, in former Soviet Union, right across Israel and right across the United States of America. So I think that's where I've seen the power of, the notion of people saying, I want to make a difference. Shabbos is so precious. It's a gift that belongs to every Jew. I want to be part of that mission.
That's really beautiful.
We'll be right back this week's episode, but first, let me tell you how you at home could win a Tesla or $50,000 in cash. Which Tesla, you're asking? Well, you can either win the Cybertruck, the Tesla X, the Tesla Y, the Tesla 3, or the Tesla S. Yep, any Tesla of your choice that I just listed. Or if you like cash, you can win $50,000 in cash. This is the 9th annual Chicago Chesed Fund Tesla Raffle campaign, and you could be the next winner. Now let's go inside. I'm a little insulted that the person who drove this Tesla is listening to Ben Shapiro, but he's good people, so I'm okay with that.
Put on Inspiration for the Nation.
Chicago Chesed Fund is an incredible organization that I personally love, and if you haven't heard about them yet, you got to get involved because they are helping thousands of people. They have over 80 programs and services, and they help people in crisis. They help get people back on their feet. What I really love about them is they think of everything that people need, whether it's furniture or food or navigation with programs from the government or getting a job, right? Helping people get back on their feet. That's exactly what they do. You could be the winner of the raffle. All you got to do is go to ccfraffle.com and put in the code L'chaim, and you're going to get $25 off when you buy 2 tickets or more. So go ahead and hurry. There's a limited amount of tickets, and this hush puppy behind me could be yours. Also, you could go in the show links and click on the link that we have, put in the word L'chaim, and boom, bada boom, you're entering into the best raffle on planet Earth. And bonus for you early bird people, if you enter the raffle before July 11th and buy 2 tickets, you will also be entered in to win a Tesla Tequila. I heard it's very yummy. Don't worry, it's kosher, and it's valued at $1,600, and you'll be entered into that raffle if you get 2 tickets before July 11th. Again, you have the opportunity to be an inspiration for the nation by helping Chicago's people in need, and all you got to do is buy tickets, use the code word L'chaim. Again, go to ccfraffle.com, and this Tesla might be yours. And although you're seeing me in this Tesla, your Tesla is going to be brand new, whichever one you want. And now back to this week's episode.
So I don't know if it's in Chazal or I'm making this up, but isn't there somewhere that if all the Jews keep 2 Shabbosim, then Mashiach will come? And we already did it one time by Har Sinai, and then the next week, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. Is that accurate, or am I making that up?
Yeah, that's there are two places in the Gemara in the Talmud Bavli. Okay, in Talmud Bavli, it says if the entire Jewish people will keep 2 Shabboses, then miyada yunigalim. Ilmala Yisrael Mishtamrim Shtei Shabbosos miyada yunigalim. If the Jewish people keep 2 Shabbos, they would be redeemed immediately. And there's a Yerushalmi that says if the Jewish people would keep 1 Shabbos, then would be redeemed immediately. And then some of the commentators to discuss that Bavli and Yerushalmi some say that first Shabbos was kept in the desert, that like you just referred to. Others have different interpretations of it. The message is that Shabbos brings Geula to the world, redemption. And redemption, of course, it's redemption, obviously of Mashiach, but it's saying in a very deep way that Shabbos gives us freedom and lifts us up. What is redemption? Redemption is when we feel that our lives are worthwhile, when there's purpose, when there's meaning, when we are transcendent, when we are feeling connected, we're feeling happy, we are feeling purposeful, we're feeling connected to God, to our spouse, to our children, to our siblings, to our community, to one another, and to that deep sense of meaning and purpose in life. So it completely redeems every dimension of what it is. So there is that dimension, and I think there's something about Shabbos that has such a magic and a power that I've been astounded over these years to see and to feel the resonance that it has with Am Yisrael. I mean, like over the years, we've had people who've been so touched by it, coming from nothing, and yet there was a story a few years ago of a woman who walked into a challah bake in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she was so moved by it. She came there, and she wasn't really going to come. And she was actually married to a non-Jew, and yet friends convinced her to come, and she went through such a process in that Shabbos Project, and through that challah bake, and then through keeping that Shabbos, that her and her husband together, he went on a Geirus program.
Wow.
Culminated over a few years. And a lot of these stories, by the way, I've written about in my new book. At the back of the book, there's a section called The Afterward, which is really called the unexpected story of the Shabbat Project. And it tells many of these stories, including, Jews from former Soviet Union who'd been cut off from Shabbos for years and years and years, and then came to a Shabbaton in Belarus, and arriving there, having no connection with it, traveling on a train for like a day in order to get there to the Shabbaton, experiencing Shabbos for the very first time in their entire lives, and being in tears at the end of Shabbos. It has a way. Some people connect to Shabbos because they feel it gives them a way of having a moment without the distraction and the chaos and the sort of dislocation of constant connection to technology, and others come from a space of the spiritual connection. Others come from a space of all Jewish pride. Shabbos is so multifaceted and so powerful as an idea and a concept, and it resonates with the depths of the Jewish soul. Like, that statement in the Talmud that God said that Shabbos will be your partner, and meaning it's our soulmate. And something also which I wrote about in the new book is this idea that Shabbos is our soulmate, and you can feel that that kind of spiritual resonance. What I've seen with the Shabbos Project over all these years, it's not just about a better quality of life. And we know that Shabbos does give us a better quality of life, but there's something deeply profound about it in the deepest way. And I found that interesting thing over the years of the Shabbos Project, a lot of people have felt, well, it's there to reach people who don't keep Shabbos. But actually many Jews who do keep Shabbos are looking to be re-inspired with it. And we can take it for granted. I mean, if you have something every week, you can take for granted, well, what a gift it is. And I think and sometimes when engaging with people who don't keep Shabbos, and you actually learn the gift that you have of it. There's an amazing story that I experienced a few years ago when I was in contact with the president's office here in South Africa, and I was waiting to hear on a particular sensitive matter something from the president, and I was dealing with his chief of staff, and I hadn't heard from him. I was waiting. It's been a few days, and it was Friday afternoon, and I was waiting to hear from them, and then I was worried that they would get back to me and it would be Shabbos and my phone would be off. So I had to explain it to them. So I called the chief of staff. I called the chief of staff and I said to her, look, it's Friday afternoon. In about 2 hours is going to be sunset. From then, and I was like so nervous to explain this. Well, what does this sound like? I was waiting to hear from the president, and I'm going to tell her, but by the way, my phone's going to be off for 25 hours. But this thing is like sensitive and urgent. So how sensitive and how urgent can it be if my phone's going to be off for 25 hours? So I was like, stumbling along and explaining, very awkward. This is the Bible. And, when the Bible says you must keep the Sabbath, this is our tradition in terms of Judaism and the Talmud. We don't use our phones. And that means from sunset today, my phone's going to be off for 25 hours. And if you call me on behalf of the president and my phone is off, I will only be able to pick up the message on Saturday night and I'll get back to you then. But please don't take it as an offense, to the president. And I was like waiting to see what she was going to say. And like, is she going to say, this is ridiculous? Are you insulting us? She said to me words which I'll never forget. She said, I'm jealous. I wish I could do the same. There was like the sense, and sometimes you have that sense and that made me realize, that moment made me realize in the most powerful way that actually we are sitting on something here which is so precious. And sometimes explaining it to an outsider, you actually realize what a special gift it is.
It's so interesting because the world, I've seen more on social media and I think on Twitter and tweets, like people talking about the concept of taking a day without technology. And obviously there's so much more to Shabbos than just technology, but obviously in today's time where so many people are so addicted to technology, because technology is great, but at the same time, it's so easy to get absorbed by it that the world is taking on the practice of Shabbos in a way. It's the world's changing.
Yeah, it is. But I think also we as Jews, have to be aware, and I would even say be careful, because it's true. We're sitting on something precious that the world wishes they had. Like she said to me as the chief of staff, she's jealous. She wishes she had that. But we have to realize, exactly as you said, Yaakov, that Shabbos is so much more. And part of the journey in writing my new book, Shabbat, A Day to Create Yourself, part of the journey was trying to discover what makes Shabbos so special. Because from the Shabbos Project, I started to realize, it's a funny thing to say started to realize, okay? Because, right, I'm a rabbi, I'm a chief rabbi. I know Hilchos Shabbos. Okay? I know the laws of Shabbos. I taught the laws of Shabbos. I taught the laws of Shabbos to yeshiva bochurim, and I've taught the laws of Shabbos to members of the various shuls that I've served as the rabbi, and I've paskened laws of Shabbos. Know the laws of Shabbos inside out, and learned Masechta Shabbos, the Gemara, from cover to cover. And yet, I started to feel, as I was watching the Shabbos Project unfold, there feels like there's something here that I don't know. There's something about the vision and the values of Shabbos that I haven't yet worked out, because look how powerful this is. And if it amounts to just these halachas, then what else is there? Is there something I'm missing? So I did what any good rabbi would do at that point. I hit the books. and because in yeshiva I'd been trained in the laws of Shabbos, but I hadn't been trained in the values and the vision of Shabbos. And I started looking at what the Rishonim and the Achronim, all of our great sages from across the generations, thousands of years of Torah scholarship, said about the philosophy of Shabbos. And I went on a journey for myself for a number of years, looking in, writing down, giving talks, recording the talks, creating manuscripts. And from that, a book emerged. It's a funny thing. In the same way that I didn't sit down to set up a Shabbos project. I didn't intend to set up a Shabbos project. It happened, and then the power of Shabbos pulled me along. I didn't really sit down to write a book. I've written other books, and the process for me writing the other books was very much, I knew what I wanted to say. Then I had to just put it on a piece of paper. And here it was something else. I followed the lead of Shabbos, and I followed the lead of all of the sages that had written about it over all of the years. And then the picture started to unfold, and I started to see all of the different dimensions of it. So the new book that I've written in the bibliography has more than 200 svarim, 200 books that form the reference point for it, and built it on the philosophy of the Ramban about, how Shabbos can be self-transformational and how it changes our character, perspectives, and happiness. And so was born this book called Shabbos, A Day to Create Yourself, which sounds a bit of an anomaly. What do you mean to create yourself? It's like, it's not a day of creation. And so what I started to point out, that's with a very narrow definition of creation and productivity, that we always measure productivity by the things we can touch and measure and feel and price. But actually the message of Shabbos, there's a whole other world of things that we need to create, which we can't touch and feel. And we have to create the physical world around us, but ultimately the inner world, the world of our connection to Hashem, to our loved ones, to ourselves, our sense of wisdom, of character, of perspectives, happiness, all of these things are intangible. You can't feel and touch them, but they actually are precious. They are the purpose of life. And Shabbos is the day that we dedicate ourselves to that. So it's such a rich experience. And what I try to show in the book is that all of the halachas of Shabbos, the 39 malachas, all of the different dimensions, Kiddush, Havdalah, the davening, all of this forms a package that if you want to access the ideas, the power, the inspiration of Shabbos, that word inspiration is so powerful. I know it's your inspiration nation, that because human beings, we crave inspiration, and Shabbos is a day package, 25 hours of inspiration. But the inspiration, you have to find it, you have to create it, you have to throw yourself in. It's not served to you. Your Shabbos is what you make of it. And it starts with the halacha. But what I try to show in the book was how the halacha creates the framework for that inspiration in the most beautiful way and in the most self-transformational way. And that's why I wrote in the foreword to the book, it was eye-opening for me to write the book. And so, like, people may say, okay, another book about Shabbos. What's it? Actually, I found for me, it was absolutely eye-opening to discover all of these things and see it with completely fresh eyes.
That's really beautiful. And I'm very happy that we're doing this on a Thursday because you're making me desire Shabbos so much. And if we did this on like a Sunday, I don't know if I'd be able to wait the week to get to Shabbos. I have a point on Shabbos that I want to say. But before that, I want to tell anyone watching this, obviously continue listening. There's a lot more that we're going to discuss. But anyone who wants to buy the book, they could buy it on Amazon or wherever your local Jewish stores are, as well as in the link in the show notes. We're going to have a link that you could just tap there and go and buy it. And Rabbi, tell me if I'm wrong here, but all the proceeds from the book go to support the Shabbos Project.
Yes, absolutely. All of the proceeds go to the Shabbos Project, and I think that for me, it's something that I learned that Shabbos is. I really felt when we were preparing this, the idea of this book and to bring it into the world, I felt that it would be wrong to take money out of Shabbos. It's something which, I'll tell you where I learned that from the book cover designer. I was trying to find the right cover design for this book because it's presenting Shabbos with fresh eyes. Although it's based on Rishonim and Achronim and covered in Chazal. And by the way, people shouldn't be intimidated. The chapters take about 5 minutes to read. I know. Yeah, no,
it's an easy enjoy. It's great. It's a great, easy, nice, inspiring read.
Yeah, and all of the makoros, all the sources in it are put as end notes at each chapter. So you can actually read the chapter without bumping into all kind of names of rabbonim and that. It's all referenced there, and it takes about I did the audio book, which is also available for people if you want to get on Kindle. I mean on Amazon you can get the audio book, and the ebook is also the audio book. When I read it. It's around average about 5 minutes a chapter, literally. So it's very easy to get through it, but it presents a lot of fresh perspectives. And an interesting thing with the cover of the book, I was trying to find the kind of right look and feel for it, and I wanted something that wouldn't just be challahs and 2 candles on the cover. I wanted something that would be fresh. So I found an amazing designer in Israel. Who kind of my brief to her was something like, if Steve Jobs and Apple came to Shabbos, what would it look like? But still also want something that has kedusha, that has holiness in it. So the word Shabbat, as you see on the cover, is written in the Rashi font with the foiling, in the copper foiling, and then the rest with the black and white, the word yourself broken. So there is sort of an innovation in that. And then after she did that, she refused to charge me for that, even though she's a professional designer, because she said, how can she charge for something to do with Shabbos? And that's why, people talk about the divisions in Israel. She may be described by, some people as chiloni, which I hate that word, to describe a fellow Jew as secular. We are all Jews connected to Hashem, and she wouldn't take anything for it. And it was a lot because the book's been translated into Hebrew, Spanish, and French. And so she had to redesign the cover for all of those languages because it's part of the Shabbos Project, and I think that's been part of the amazing journey. And what's happened, which has been an amazing thing, is that Shabbos Project volunteers are starting learning groups with the book, and I think that for people who are listening and who want to get going and starting a learning group, there've been some amazing donors who've said to me that anyone who wants to start a learning group with the book, to set up a group of people to learn, they will sponsor the books to get a learning group started. So I wanted to say to people out there who are listening, if you want to start a learning group with a group of friends to go through the book as a group and to teach it, and we were saying everyone being personal leaders and going out and teaching, then they should reach out to me or to you, and we have some amazing supporters who are prepared to say, listen, you want to start a learning group with it to spread the message of Shabbos and the ideas of Shabbos. They will support helping you get started with your learning group. So I'd be happy for them to contact you, Yaakov, or they can contact me on my email, which you can also share with your viewers. I think it could be an amazing journey, and that's part of personal leadership. In South Africa, there are people who've started learning groups at banks where they work, and moms at drop off. In the US, just in the last few weeks, Shabbos Project partners, led by an amazing person, Robin Meyerson in Scottsdale, Arizona, she's been involved with people. They've set up more than 200 learning groups around it. In Israel, there are organizations who are with Yeshiva Bochrim and soldiers. An amazing organization called Kesher Yehudi that they've got 2,000 chavrusas. 1,000 chavrusas with the book that they're learning together, and especially in this time in Israel when there's so much division, you would think this would be the last time that soldiers and yeshiva bochrim would sit to learn a chavrusa about Shabbos, but that's exactly what's happening, and people are finding that an amazing connection point. So just wanted to mention that because I think we can all be part of spreading that message in the world.
That's really incredible. And I feel that we could spend literally another 4 hours on just the concept of Shabbos and how incredible it is. I'm just going to finish off with this segment of just saying anyone who gets the audiobook, the rule is you can only listen to 6 days of the week. There's no listening to the audiobook on Shabbos. That'll be like very counterproductive. And we'll be right back to this week's episode. Some gems coming from the Chief Rabbi. But first, let me tell you about one of my favorite books on planet Earth. We had on That's an Issue Dr. Shlomi Zimmerman, and he was great. He told us at that point that he's working on a book. The book is now out and is called From Boys to Men. I read it and I can't get enough of it. Through the generous giving of someone who really believes in the book and how important it is for Klal Yisrael, they are going ahead and helping with the sponsoring of the book and sending it out. All you got to do is give an $18 donation to Living L'Chaim, and boom, the book is yours. You have to pay for shipping. You don't have to pay for the actual book. Just an $18 donation that we know that you're serious about it. And honestly, your money will go ahead and help others get the book as well, so we could keep this going as long as possible. The book is incredible. It is a book that integrates the Torah's wisdom and cutting-edge psychological research to provide a comprehensive approach to educating and supporting our sons and students regarding health and safety, puberty, marital intimacy, and today's challenges to Kedusha. If you are a father, if you are a mother, and you are running a Jewish home, you need to have this book in your house. You need to read it. We know people are sending their children to camp now at this point, whether it's first half or second half, and it's more important than ever for you to read this book and have a conversation with your children. I know it's daunting, it's scary, but with the help of this book, you are in good hands. So go ahead and go to our website, livinglechaim.com/Dr. Z, and give an $18 donation, and boom, the book is yours. I highly recommend it. I literally was planning on holding the book up for those watching this on YouTube, but I'm literally in the middle of the book at home, and I'm like, I'm not going to bring it here because I don't want to forget about it. Hopefully, by the next time I do this, you'll have the actual book here. For now, the graphic of the book will work. Go ahead and help build your family safely with the incredible book From Boys to Men by Dr. Shlomi Zimmerman. And you could click on the link in the show notes. Now back to this week's episode. Could you tell the audience, because you mentioned before South Africa, how beautiful it is. But unfortunately, it could be a very complicated place. Could you tell us, I think the world is getting a little crazier. When I was younger, America felt like a very safe place. And as time goes on, it just feels crazier and crazier. But there's a lot of, I guess, corruption that goes on in South Africa. What have you done to help combat that and help people feel protected and safe?
Yeah, so I think that what's an important thing for all of your listeners to understand, people who don't know anything about South Africa, and it's an important thing to understand about it, is that it is a completely free democracy. And that means that in the years of apartheid, it was a tyranny, which was a white minority government oppressing the majority of the population, and there wasn't proper freedom at all. There was no freedom. But after 1994, there was freedom and democracy was born. We had President Nelson Mandela as the first democratically elected president. And since then, South Africa's had a new constitution with the Bill of Rights, which has a separation of powers, independent judiciary, freedom of the press, freedom of association. You can say and do anything. It's a completely free country with a very, very robust democracy with regular elections. And in the course of all of that, as a new country, it's had a lot of challenges. There's been a lot of challenges to overcome poverty and deprivation. And in the early years, the government, soon after freedom, democracy, built lots of homes and electrified and brought running water to many places that had been deprived because the apartheid government had ignored them because they were black areas. And in fact, they had rules to separate where black people could live and white people could live. And with the freedom and democracy, total equality was born. And a lot of challenge came along with that. And part of the role that I've, as chief rabbi that I've been involved in, as that you were referring to, there was a time around, between 2008, 2015, there was a lot of challenge where under President Jacob Zuma there was a lot of corruption which was taking place on state level. I called it state capture. There was and there was a civil society movement to call for an end to that, and I joined many of the protests against President Zuma, addressed rallies outside the union buildings, which is the main seat of government. But and people at the time said, well, how can you do this, and what will be the impact be on the Jewish community? But at the time, and I said, and I stand by it, is that it's a free democracy, and so part of what happened in those protests was that you can, and I believe, therefore, as a Kiddush Hashem, to very important to be part of it. I actually, in fact, changed the prayer that we said for the president at the time. I changed the wording in our shuls, not to pray for the president, but to pray that the country be blessed with a president who's worthy of the nation, etc. So there was a lot that was going on, and I played a role with other religious leaders and with other civil society leaders, and it was an important period in history. And eventually, President Zuma was, in fact, removed from power. There continue to be challenges. There are elections coming next year in South Africa in 2024. The ruling party, the ANC, has seen quite a steep drop in its support. There's coalition governments which are being formed in all of the major metropolitan areas. So there is a lot of political change which is happening in South Africa. And over the years, as people may be aware, that we had problems of violent crime, and I led an initiative together with a number of people within the Jewish community to establish an organization called CAP, Community Active Protection, which has been involved in fighting crime in Johannesburg and has brought down contact crime in Johannesburg between 80 and 90%, depending on the areas of operation, protecting hundreds of thousands of people, and now expanding, to having an impact on safety for potentially millions of people. I did a project with the Minister of Education many years ago to create a Bill of Responsibilities, a document which would accompany the Bill of Rights to promote the notion of responsibility in schools. And so all of these initiatives, which have been sort of the other part of my work, is, part of it is teaching Torah, spreading mitzvahs. That's a key part of it. But also part of it is to engage with the society and to be a voice for Torah values and for the Jewish community in the broader society. Because it's a free and open democracy, it allows for that. Also, a large part of what I've done is also been to tackle the BDS movement and also to lay out the arguments in many articles and speeches why Israel is not guilty of apartheid, and that to use that accusation, I know that has gained currency in some of the campuses in the United States, and I wanted to use this opportunity on your show to really say that there is so much information, and to say, as a South African chief rabbi who knows and was born in South Africa and knows apartheid from the inside. When I was growing up as a child, we grew up under the apartheid government, so I know what that looks like from the inside. The first elections that I voted in were actually the democratic elections. I never voted in an apartheid election. Only the final thing was when there was a referendum that was held, amongst the white population, whether to end apartheid. That was the first time that I'd voted, and obviously voted with all of those who voted yes to end apartheid and to move into the new era. But the point that I'm making is that it's within the context of this free and open society, there is room to make these arguments, and that I know what apartheid is from the inside, and I know Israel. I've visited Israel many times, understand it on firsthand, and I've written many articles to explain why the use of apartheid is, firstly, it's defamation of the Jewish state, lies and fabrication, and the most pernicious use and cynical use of lies and distortion of the truth to destroy the Jewish state, because that's what it's intended. They're looking to get an international sanctions campaign which brought down the South African apartheid government, as it should have. But in the case of Israel, they're seeking the destruction of Israel. And I also know, because having been born in South Africa, that to accuse Israel of apartheid is not only a lie against the Jewish state, it is also an insult to the victims of the real apartheid, because if everything's apartheid, nothing is. And so it's offensive to the victims of apartheid. It's offensive to the Jewish state. And that's why I've written and spoken extensively about this. And it's very important for Jewish students on campus in the United States to arm themselves with all the information to be able to refute these arguments and this outrageous comparison.
Very well said. Very well said. So I ask everyone usually at the end, which we're winding down here, for their favorite mitzvah out of the 613. I have a feeling I might know the answer, but you never know. What is your favorite mitzvah or a mitzvah that you feel very passionate about?
In a certain way, that was in the very early years, just before the Shabbos Project started, somebody asked me that. I was in a conversation with Professor Dan Ariely, who's a top behavioral scientist and written many books. And he asked me about it. At the time I said to him, because if anyone asked me such a question, I would say, obviously we can't choose a favorite mitzvah. It's like choosing a favorite child. You can't do that. But I said to him, if you pushed me into a corner, I would say Shabbos, and he said why, and in that conversation, it like provoked a whole thinking inside about what, why Shabbos and the importance of it. So, which we've been discussing at length here today. And then at the time, I actually said to Professor Dan Ariely, I said, so how would you encourage people to keep Shabbos? He said, the most important thing is that people have to taste it for themselves and taste and do it completely and kind of go all in, not in half measures. And then a person can see for themselves the beauty of what it is. And that sparked a lot of thinking at the time, which I think in a way led to the events which followed with the Shabbos Project. So it's interesting that you asked me that question, because it actually it was a question asked many years ago that led to a train of thought that ended up in the project in an indirect way.
Wow, that's okay. Who knows what this question will lead to? If you could sit down with any person from history that is no longer with us, who would you sit down with?
You know what? I think Yaakov. I think after all the questions, can I pass on this one, which I'm happy to have on the record. Yeah, I can't. I don't have a great answer for you on that. Can I be one of your few guests who gets away without an answer on that question?
I just think if I corner you into it, then like in a few years from now, we're going to see like the Moshe Rabbeinu project, and then this whole like entire huge thing happening. But okay, fine, yeah, fair enough. You've done a lot of really wonderful, inspiring talking, so we'll let you pass on that. What's the worst advice that you've ever received?
Worst advice. Well, I tell you what, the best advice.
Okay.
The best advice was that my wife gave me to stay working and as a rabbi and continue this path. That was like, wow. It also, and part of it is obviously, that led to a whole path in my life, her life, and something which I'm so grateful for the blessings that have come from it. But it also taught me something as well. You need to go with your heart. And there is inside your neshama, there are things which you need to do in the world. And I would also say to people, what I learned from that advice and what I've tried to myself over these years is try and block out the noise for a moment and say, what does my heart tell me? Even in like those early years of the Shabbos Project, saying, okay, there's a lot of skeptics here. What's my heart telling me? And my heart is telling me, just go for this, and jump in. You don't need to know where it's going. And sometimes we overthink things and we try to make, and I think that's part of, being a Jew, is the sense of, you need to go follow your heart. Inspiration Nation. That's why I love the name of this, of your podcast. It's inspiration says, inspiration, what is it? It's a feeling. It's something which touches the neshama. It's not just this equation, this formula that you can say, you put a bit of this, you put of that, plus this times by that, and you're going to come out with this perfect, there's a certain dynamic in it that you have to feel. And in a way that the halacha is the framework that allows us to go on that journey. We have this framework of, we know exactly what to do. And then within that framework, we also follow our heart. There's the thing of the leiv tov, of the good heart, or what the Mishlei calls the chacham leiv, which the wise of heart. And the Malbim actually says, chacham leiv, it's where the chokhmah, the wisdom, becomes part of your heart and becomes part of who you are. And sometimes we get so caught up in what we should do, could do, And part of the growth of a Jew is to make that chokhmah, that wisdom of the Torah, let it filter into our hearts that we can feel it and truly be inspired.
Really incredible. We're going to finish off with this last question, and it could be from any moment in your life. It could be from Sinai Indaba, which I know you spoke about, but we could probably do a whole episode just on that. It's really incredible, and I highly recommend anyone who is watching this on YouTube to go check it out, because there's a lot of incredible speeches from there. But what's a story that inspires you, that either happened in your life or you heard it and it just gives you that chizuk?
Yeah, I can't point to one. I can't point to one. I do have this like feeling that great things come out of people. I really believe in people in the deepest way. And that's why all the things that I've done with people, whether it's been CAP or Bill of Responsibilities or Shabbos Project or Sinai Indaba or Generation Sinai, which is this kind of learning program with parents and children, all of these things, I've seen the magic in people and their stories. And I find those so inspiring and so uplifting in the most deep, profound way. So it's really, and look for the inspiration around you. It says that, Moshe Rabbeinu was Anav Mikol Adam, most humble of all people. And one of the Rabbi Rucham, I believe, says he was humbled by the greatness he saw in all people. It wasn't, he was humble Mikol Adam, from all people. In other words, he was humbled by the greatness he saw around him. And I think, look around you. I would say to your listeners, look around you and find inspiration in the people around you.
I love that. Chief Rabbi, thank you so much for taking your time to do this. I really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much, Yaakov. So lovely to be with you.
Thanks again for watching this week's episode. If you got up to this point in the video, I need you to write the words uplifting and whatever comments that you want to share, maybe your favorite moment from this episode. There's a lot of beautiful thoughts from the Chief Rabbi, and it's been a while. I've been trying very hard to get time with the Chief Rabbi, but he's so busy with all his initiatives, and his book is incredible. Shabbat, A Day to Create Yourself, is becoming a global initiative where people are starting to create learning groups talking about Shabbos. And if you are wanting to get others in your community, maybe they're not as Shabbos observant as you are, or maybe they are, and you just want to work on Shabbos and help others see the beauty, well, you could get a free copy of the Rabbi's book. You just send an email to robin@chiefrabbi.co.za. Don't worry, we're going to have a link in the show notes, and you'll receive a free of charge as many copies of the book as you need for your group. The book, obviously, is also, if you want to buy it, is available on ebook, on Amazon, Steinmetzky, wherever you buy your local Jewish books. And all proceeds from the book, when you buy the book, it goes ahead and gets funneled to help the Shabbos Project, which is coming up not too far. So obviously get involved there. I'm always loving to hear your suggestions. So go ahead and let me know who you want to see on this program. You go to livinglechaim.com. Don't forget, you could be, I'm telling you, I feel it in my bones, someone from this week's episode, I hope, will be the winner of the brand new Tesla or $50,000 in cash. So go to ccfraffle.com to go ahead, or you just look at the link in the show notes, just tap over there, use code word L'chaim for $25 off, and so they could track, they can see how many people are actually buying the tickets. But go ahead, I so want someone from Inspiration for the Nation to be the winner, and go ahead and pick up your copy of Dr. Zimmerman's book. Again, just an $18 donation towards Living L'chaim, so we can help others, get as many people as possible to get the book. Just for $18, I think it's $23 in the store, and if you buy it online, you have to pay for shipping also. It's a great deal, and it's a great book to help you and your family live a more pure life. But honestly, it just helps you navigate those conversations that are hard to navigate, and it could be yours. So go to livinglechaim.com/Dr. Z, that's DRZ, and go ahead and share this episode with someone who enjoys it, someone who loves Shabbos, someone who needs to love Shabbos even more. Till next time, you at home can be inspirational. L'chaim. Living L'chaim.